So let me go onto the line and speak to an official of the DVLA, because one of the things we do in the new year is to sort of register our newly bought cars.
For those of you who have bought new cars.
For those listening who have bought new cars. And there have been some issues around whether or not we will continue the old path of registration, or there's a new approach to registering, what do you call it, cars. There have been some issues here and there. Let's clear the air on the situation. Director of Communications for the DVLA is Stephen Itia. He's joined us on the line. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. And first of all, tell me about how your New Year went.
Thank you, Richard, and a good morning to your cherished viewers, and a happy New Year to everybody listening to us this morning. But I'm an ardent listener of Citi FM myself.
Oh, bless you.
So I mean, your songs have been some of the comfort for the beginning of the year, and so the year has been very young, pretty young. Today is the second day in the year. We're only hopeful that this year will present us with great opportunities and then get us more into a period of prosperity. But again, because of where we work, the longer one can live, especially if you drive, or even if you are a pedestrian, is to pay attention to road traffic signs so that we can all protect one another. And then we can aspire to achieve that which we aspire for. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that message. So, what's happening with registration of vehicles? We had conflicting signals. First, it was that there was going to be a change in the methodology that was used and the number plates that would be issued. And then, subsequently, communications we've received, or pieces of information we've received, suggested that there was going to be a freeze on the proposed new approach because there has been a delay in get Parliament to do a side of the job. Update us on what exactly vehicle owners should expect given the conflicting signals we've had.
All right, thank you once again, Richard. The whole agenda for DVLA was to bring in a new system of registration, and specifically we wanted to take off the suffix, from at least those who are more recent, from the year 2009. There was an introduction of a suffix 09, then 2010 we moved to 10, 11, 12, all the way to 25 just last year. The reason again was that you see instances where people they bring in vehicles, they use the vehicle over a period of time, keep changing their DV plates, and then they will sell the vehicle to an unsuspecting buyer who may think that he just bought a brand new vehicle, which may not be the case. But more importantly, the plates we have currently are quite limited when it comes to issue of being able to trace when crimes are committed using vehicles. So we wanted to bring in an RFID embedded chip plate that is more of a radio frequency identification plate, which comes in with technology that allows for traceability. But then to bring in these things, we needed to go to Parliament. Our current regulations, the LI 2180 under Regulation 10 specifically would give you an indication of what should be on a license plate. So if you want to bring in new features on the same license plate, you have to go back to Parliament to get those amendments done. So we kept the public going along with us to get everybody to know what we were coming up with upon the 10th of the year, which is 2026. But unfortunately, we needed 2 amendments. The government had made promises to commercialize Okada. And so the Road Traffic Act 2004, that's Act 683, needed some amendment to make room for the commercialization or the commercial operation of motorbikes. That had gone through. But then when it comes to the specific regulations in the LI 2180, which we require to be able to amend before we can introduce the plate, that was not successfully done before Parliament went on recess. And so, being a law guiding institution, that regime must actually be in place before we can roll out the new license plate. And the absence of that, we are compelled to go along with the current registration system or regime that we have. So we're moving from the suffix 25, which is for the year 2025, to the suffix 26, which is beginning today. So instead of the original plan of taking away the suffix, unfortunately, because we couldn't go through, that would be allowed to happen until we get the amendment done. Then we can roll on to the new system and the new platform and then issue out those plates. So that is basically what we have on our hands currently as an authority.
First of all, are you able to tell us what exactly made it impossible for Parliament to effect the necessary changes?
So the understanding I have is that there's been a lot of back and forth. In fact, at a point, one of the suggestions was that, the regulation as we have currently is not only guiding DVLA. You have road safety, you have the Ghana Police Service, every institution that has something to do with the road sector or the transport sector actually has a portion in the LI. And so, per the understanding we have, there have been several institutions that have gone for several amendments one way or the other in order to get their systems running. So there were suggestions initially to then overhaul the entire LI so that they will introduce a new LI that has all the provisions in it, which would have incorporated all the amendments. So those were the back and forth, which could not be concluded before Parliament went on recess. And so that is what has tied our hands as an authority.
So are you working with some timeline? Say you want to use the suffix for the first 3 months of the year or the first quarter, or you want to use them for the first half of the year and then hopefully roll out in the next half of the year, or you simply are going to continue with how things were done, and hopefully when the amendments get made, then you just take off from there. I think listeners will want some clarity as to what exactly the timelines are.
Yes, so Richard, the issue is that we could have been able to provide some timelines, but then looking at what we have had to go through before the end of the year, which delayed our introduction of these new plates, we would let Parliament do the work they have to do. As soon as the LI is passed, our systems are ready and we'll put them in place. And what we will do again is to give the public ample notification of what we intend to do. In fact, as part of this communication, one of the things we are looking at, there are people who are driving currently their 2025 DV plates. What they would have to do, those DV plates, when they are issued, we start issuing them from the second day of January and they expire on the 31st day of December in the year they are issued. So for anyone who is using a DV plate 2025, you need to be making provisions to acquire a 2026 DV. That is what will allow you. For those who are using the DP stickers, it's basically for 14 days period. And you are supposed to at least transform into a DV or to register the vehicle itself. So with strict timelines, I wouldn't want to commit us because until Parliament is done with the LI, there's no way we can come up. We don't want to come back with another excuse as an authority, and then we may be taken to be contradicting ourselves in this regard.
It would seem that you will be facing logistical nightmare because, printing the plates, is something that generally gets done beforehand, at least before the new year comes in. So you have an idea as to, how many vehicles you expect to register. There's some projection that is done. I'm not so sure whether the lack of clarity meant that you were unable to print the plates or you have since started printing the plates. Clarify the situation for us. Yes. If I drive into your shop today, would it be possible that I get back home by close of day with a new plate, 2026 suffix?
Good. So, Richard, a lot of arrangements were put in place. Parliament went on recess at least and gave us sufficient time enough to be able to do what we were doing in the past. And so we've put in the necessary logistics to ensure that anybody who walks into a facility and wants to register a vehicle to acquire 2026 plate, that person will be taken through that process to be issued with a plate. So the logistics as we had existing in the system currently, or the system we're transitioning from, is still intact.
Beautiful. Now, let's talk about the duration of the process of registration. Much earlier, towards the end of last year, we had text messages that suggested that people were to onboard, sort of register their vehicles on a certain online platform as part of the reforms you were rolling out. First of all, where are we with that? Is there an uptake? And then secondly, if I drive into a DVLA facility today, this morning, say by 9 a.m., is there a clear idea as to how many hours, how many minutes I must spend before I get my new plate? And for how much?
All right. So the first one has to do the onboarding process. I mean, from the year 2023, there's been a conscious effort by the authority to ensure that every vehicle that was registered from 2023 was registered digitally. So for anybody who registered a vehicle after 2023, the person goes home with a title. And in addition to that, the person has a smart card issued to him. What that means is that if you've registered your vehicle before the year 2023, you are expected to come back to DVLA to register your vehicle onto a digital platform, which gives you access, it gives you title, and then you leave the facility also with a smart card, which shows you or gives you a complete ownership of that vehicle. That is one aspect. So we advise that for anyone who has not done that process yet, you do that before we come to the new registration process, because the new registration will seek to put you onto that digital platform with the RFID chip embedded plate I spoke about. So we advise everybody to do that. Now, for anybody who wants to come to our facility to register a vehicle, if you walk into our facility after 9 o'clock, we start work at 8:30. It should be able to take you through the process. In fact, you need to come in. You know, when you buy a vehicle, there's a customs clearance form or document that you are handed over with. You need to come with it with your Ghana card. You need to come along with 2 passport pictures. And that is the beginning of the process. When it comes to the cost of registering a vehicle, vehicles are registered based on their cubic capacity. So it is not possible to put out a figure that generally covers every vehicle. So when the vehicle comes, the officers have the price tags. And one thing I need to emphasize is that DVLA does not charge fees that have not been approved by Parliament. Whatever fees you come to DVLA that is charged to you is fees that are approved by Parliament. But we have phenomenon or situations where people unfortunately go in to engage middle people, and yet at the end of the day, they end up paying more than they should have done. One of the reasons, or one of the ways we sought to deal with this matter, is you seeing us opening more offices of DVLA. That is simply to provide access to every individual. And we advise and encourage everybody to walk into our offices. When you walk into any of our offices, there are customer service officers at the front desk. You can speak with them. They'll give you a guidance as to what and what, who to see and what to do when you walk into our facility. And so the Ghanaian people should come directly to DVLA to access our service and pay exactly the fees that have been approved by Parliament, so that nobody gets overcharged or nobody gets extorted or even end up getting fake documents issued to the person because the person did not go through the right process and has engaged someone who may have nothing doing with DVLA at all.
Beautiful. And you spoke about the question of title acquisition through the process of onboarding and all of that. Are we to understand that this operates within a new legal regime, or this has always been part of, at least for the last 2 years, part of the legal regime that you run at DVLA?
All right. So it is part of the, like I mentioned, from 2023. So we realize that it gets to a point where a person owns a vehicle, and yet the person may not be able to produce documents specifically to indicate that the person owns the vehicle. And again, this process is to allow people to have full transfer of ownership. You know, you could have a car. You will sell the car to me. Sometimes you still hold on to the document, or sometimes you even hand over the documents to me. And yet, Because I go ahead and continue to use the number plate that you have on the vehicle, I assume that I have title to the car. I don't have one. If there's an issue that arises right now, they need the true owner of that vehicle, Richard will have to show up, not me. So what we seek to do now is that if you have your own vehicle, you bought it brand new, or you bought a vehicle that has not been registered here in Ghana before and you want to register with all the documentation, we hand over title specifically to you as an individual. So you can call the vehicle your car. Again, if then the vehicle has been pre-owned by another person, we would want to ensure that you do the proper transfer system so that you get a transfer of ownership in that vehicle and you can call it your vehicle. Now, with a new plate we were even looking at, you know that when you register, we give you a plate. At the time you intend to sell it or you are selling and transferring to another person, you are expected to take it off so that a new person who takes over can also acquire a plate. That makes it easier for us to say, okay, at this material moment, the owner of the vehicle is the one whose number plate is attached to it. So it allows us to be able to trace and know who. So that is the legal regime, at least from 2023, that existed for the registration of vehicles, so that everybody walks out of DVLA being fulfilled, that in fact you have title to the vehicle, you can call it your own.
So are the plates acquired in the process transferable? You said that if you sell your car, you can remove the number plate. In so doing, can you move, if for instance, okay, well, if you want to respond, yeah.
The vehicle number plate is owned by the one to whom it is issued. So when you have to sell the vehicle, because you see, that plate will be linked to several systems within the country. So for instance, the MTTD would have access, traffic tech, when they monitor and see you commit a road infraction. It records the name of the person who owns that vehicle at that material moment. It is easy for them to bail that person or to go after that person if he has used the vehicle to commit a crime, to come and answer to the law enforcement officers why that infraction was committed. So if you sell the car and you move the plate alongside with the vehicle, the one who commits an infraction records it in your name. That's the kind of system we want to build now, so that when you sell it, you take it off. DVLA may take possession of that plate until the next time you get another vehicle and you want to use it. We realign the vehicle details to the number plate and connect you so that you begin to use it. So that is the regime we are looking at.
Very well. Someone interested in issues of data and privacy-related matters. Good. I mean, there's a huge concern about all the data that you are collecting. You're asking people to onboard vehicle information details onto your platform, which also can give rise to possible leak, which then compromises people's security. And then also there are concerns about the prying eyes of the state. If you have all of the information that you're asking people to provide, people might misuse the information in government offices. What guarantees are there to ensure that this will not be something that agencies of state which have no business prying into people's whereabouts, what they are doing, where they are going, who they are visiting, and all of that,
so Richard,
do not get involved in things like that?
Yes, the point is, at least for the entire existence of DVLA, we've collected data from our clients. And for the number of years DVLA had existed, we can all attest to the fact that those data that have been collected had remained with DVLA. The point is, we are very minded of the data protection requirements, and we work as much as possible to protect the data of every individual. But you and I would agree that when a vehicle is used to commit a crime, we must find who has committed that crime with that vehicle. At that material moment, nobody can talk about his or her privacy. In fact, when you buy a vehicle, you drive on a public road. And so any infraction committed on the road, we should be able to fish you out. In fact, data is made available to institutions according to what the law allows. So, for instance, if the Ghana Police Service, MTTD, approaches DVLA and say that an infraction has been committed on the road, we need the owner of this vehicle. It is to provide what the MTTD requires specifically to deal with that matter. If a court should order DVLA to provide certain data on a client, on a vehicle, DVLA is compelled to provide that data specifically on that requirement. So you can have varied data lying or sitting with DVLA. But data is released according to what the law allows to be released for the purposes of being able to deal with a specific matter. So for that assurance, we can give to the public that we have a robust system that ensures that no matter what data is collected from you, that data is protected, and that data is not one that you can find just anywhere at all. We've been in this business for quite some time.
Beautiful. Stephen, before you go, we know about, and you spoke about it, the amendments to the law to allow Okadas, tricycles, and, Abubuya and Pragia to operate lawfully to move human beings around the country. Is there any immediate plan to begin registration of those things to operate lawfully? Quickly before I let go of you.
Good. There is. In fact, even as part of the new plan we were looking out for, we thought to distinguish between commercial operators of Okada and those who operated for private purposes. So part of the proposed number plates is that those who ride Okada motorbikes for business purposes would have used a yellow plate like we have for commercial vehicles. And then we'll maintain the blue plate for those who use it for private purposes. In fact, once the law has been passed, we've been putting in a lot of measures to ensure the training, the testing, because, for anybody who wants to acquire a driver license, for instance, the person has to go through training, the person has to go through testing. You need to pass the theory, you need to pass the practical test before we can offer you a license to that effect. It's the same thing. We'll begin to register them, we'll begin to license as well, and give those categorization for anybody who can be able to use one for commercial and one who can do for private purposes. And so a lot of things are being put in place. In fact, some are already in place, others are being put in place to ensure that once there's a full rollout, DVLA is ready to do or to fulfill its mandate under the law.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephen Atua, for speaking to us. He is the Director of Communications for the DVLA, telling us about plans they have put in place to ensure you have a seamless registration of your newly acquired vehicles when you drive into their facilities. And those of you who are interested in going into the new space that has opened, Okadas and Pragias. I'm not so sure whether I should be excited about that, but the truth is that Parliament has said that we should do it. So, in line with the government's own commitment. So, yes, if you go into their facilities, they can provide registration for those, and you can use them subject to the appropriate fees and the legal regime. To do the business that you want to do. So it's going to be, you're going to be seeing a lot of motorbikes and co on the roads these days because, yes.
Maybe I wanted Mr. Atua to speak to that, the hope. He mentioned that they go through training in the process of licensing them and registering them. The hope too is that whatever training that they are or education that they are given about their usage of the road, we will see that reflect, because once again it appears that not all of them, yes, but it appears that majority of the motorbikes apply the road regulations differently from the rest of us. They don't stop when the lights turn red. They are driving on both sides of a driver. So we need to see the training that they supposedly went through reflect in more discipline on the road and respect for the regulations of the road. Yeah,
because the culture is overtaking, for instance, not undertaking. If you want to overtake, there's a way you do it. If you undertake, if you're not careful, the driver might not see you and he might run over you or, knock you off the road. But these motorbike riders, many of them actually undertake. Before you know it, is to your left, right? And if you're not careful...
So that it doesn't sound like we are badgering them all the time. They should try and do the right thing. But I must say that a few comply with some of the basic rules. I've seen a few motorbikes stop when the traffic light turns red and wait for when it turns green before they move, but they happen to be in the minority.
Yeah, are they? Are you sure? Because from what I see, okay, Penny, what do you see?
I saw some yesterday when I went out into town. there were about 4 of them riding. We got to the traffic light. It was red. 2 stopped and 2 went. And then there was a third person who saw the others get away with it and decided that he would also join.
So majority actually.
So yes, so those who are complying are in the minority, but I'm appealing to them to also apply themselves to the rules of the road.
Well, I have very little doubt in my mind that Parliament got it wrong, the government got it wrong. I don't think that we should actually have allowed this to happen. I mean, yes, I am sensitive to the topic having to do with unemployment and related matters. I believe the energies of our youth should be deployed in much more productive sectors of the economy so that they can make something meaningful out of their lives. If you talk to people in the hospitals, the emergency wards, in the clinics we have around the country, one of the biggest killers you find around motorbikes.
Yeah.
Those who are using it to do, Okada business, those who are doing package delivery and all of that. Also because many people using these spaces do not obey the rules. So they get maimed, they have crashes, and you go to the hospitals. Beds that should ordinarily be reserved for, people who have done,
what would have been avoidable.
Exactly. Those beds are occupied, and some of these people coming and they are on the hallways and they are being taken care of and all of that. And Elvis spoke about this a few days ago and made a point about how this sort of increases the population of people with disabilities. And that becomes another cost as a country we have to deal with. Because if these people are strong enough, they will be on the farms, helping to produce a lot more for us to eat. You are into artifacts, production of furniture and related things.
Yes.
The energies these guys bring to the table can help to actually carve.
Absolutely. I wanted to, talked about other aspects of the economy, I think that we're in a period where, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, we're in a period where the youth, I don't exclude myself, we're looking at faster alternatives to generated income. And so perhaps what it would require to train as an artisan may be seen as daunting to a lot of young people. I can't put in 6 months, I can't put in 2 years to train as an apprentice before I start earning actual income. So if they look at the alternatives, whether it's riding a motorbicycle or something else which is easier and requires, or galamsey, requires less input in the developmental stage, then they'll go for it. The issue of Okada or motorcycles on the roads, it's concerning for all of us. It's economic because just as I've mentioned, it offers income to young people. And for us as a business, we require the services of dispatch, delivery guys.
Which I support.
Nonetheless, I'm concerned about safety on the road. I'm concerned about regulation because when we're on the roads, our lives are at stake, every single one of us. And so whether you're a vehicle user or a pedestrian or a motorcyclist, your life is at risk. And that's why these regulations are put in place to govern how we behave on the roads. So Francisca mentioned how it appears that the motorists are using different rules of engagement on the road, and so when you're driving, they are they're in the corners, they're on your shoulders, they're undertaking you, they're crossing, they're verbally aggressive. I mean, I've seen videos where an Uber has an encounter with a motorcycle and it turns into a mob action, right? But we have laws in the country. So in as much as they're important in our economy, we cannot dismiss that factor. I've been to Togo, I've been to Benin and Nigeria, and there are restrictions as to how far these other motorists can go in terms of the usage of the roads. You don't see tricycles and bicycles and motors on a highway, and they are properly geared. They follow the road regulation, and they use their indicators. But I see that there's a gap in our part. There's very little education about road usage and safety, as well as regulation among the particular groups who are using motorcycles, Pragia, what's the other one called? Aboboya, and the bicycles. The need is understandable, but I think that, and I would always take it back to the government, that requires a lot of education. It's not simply writing exams, theoretical exams or practical exams, but also understanding who you're dealing with and designing your education to properly fit them. When you go to Benin, there's a certain order or orderliness in how the motorcycles engage with other road users. Here it's a tournament. It's like a sports tournament. There's speed everywhere. There are times you have to, you know what they call a punchy brake.
Yes.
I don't know any Ghanaian driver who is not familiar with, because there is no supervision of what's happening on the road. It's a jungle out there. And so every now and then you halt on your brakes, you step on your brakes, you're startled, you may have a bump, a fender bender or something, just because you're trying to manage all of this. And there's so many of us on the roads now. I don't know if the roads were even designed to take this many road users. So all of this goes back to the government and how they plan to manage this for our safety, for our well-being, and for economic gains, because we can't take that as well away. I think there needs to be a balance in terms of how education is rolled out, regulation is enforced, supervision is done, because it appears that we need the authorities to be checking us on the road very often and force like citizenry to comply with the rules.
Exactly. Let me just clarify. So my concern is with using motorbikes to move human beings around. I mean, if you own your bike and you want to ride it, fine. But the idea of transporting people, exactly. And then also, I believe in deliveries, right? Get a parcel quickly, make sure that you want to file it in the courts, you rush to the registrar with it, things like that. Fantastic. And that's what we've always been doing, right? But this new idea of using motorbikes to move people from A, B, C, D, I do know that in the hinterlands, right, including parts of my own, birthplace, because in some cases the roads are bad, motorbikes have the needs of the people. Exactly. But it does not remove the need for responsibility, because some people assume that because they are providing that service, the usual, sometimes often repeated phrase, Ghanaian attitude becomes what determines what gets done. So I have always resisted the idea that we should use motorbikes for purposes of moving human beings, and the fact that Parliament has passed the law doesn't change my position on it. I believe that we could have better used the energies of the youth, but
Sky, you are crying over spilled milk.
No, what I know is that it is possible to repeal the law. And I believe that in the fullness of time, the time will come by which I would have put together a more functional road transport system, which will require that we do not use motorbikes the way we intend to use them this year going forward.
I get your concern. But the fact is that it is forgone. The law has been passed. There's, yes, an aspiration of what a repeal. Maybe not. But I think whatever the case, what's important is compliance with the regulations of the road and enforcement of the rules of the road by law enforcement, by the MTTD, Motor Transport Traffic Department of the Police Service. For me, looking at this in the broad terms, it's often disappointing how the rulers or the governors, the people who have been tasked or who have been given the responsibility to manage the affairs of the state, go about it. And often when I say this, I'm not particularly referring to any political party in power. And so my expectation is that it is not viewed with political lenses, but it's about the mandate given to a certain class or a group of people to manage this country. When they fail, okay, and in my experience, it is a lot of failure. When the governors fail to transform our lives, okay, because what we expect is transformation, then what they tend to do is the barest minimum or below that. And often that involves entertaining our whims and caprices, okay, and that is why, sad as it may, we will have this law, which you're not happy about, that permits the transportation of human beings on motor vehicles on the commercial scale, and the concerns about the kind of safety that we are applying to that. It always comes back to the failure of those at the helm of affairs running the country, not doing their exceptional best to transform each and everybody's lives, because people are paying their taxes and their expectation is not the barest minimum or anything below that. It's a transformation, and it won't take a particular political party, and that's why I made the point that it shouldn't be viewed in the spectacle of NDC or NPP, which unfortunately many of us Ghanaians tend to do. We need to look at the state actors as those tasked to do this job of governing, and then demand, from them the topmost when it comes to the roads that we are driving on, when it comes to the quality of our police service, when it comes to the quality of our healthcare. We need to look without. Often we find ourselves, squabbling among ourselves. The driver is angry at the motorbike, the pedestrian is angry, the drivers won't stop, or this and that. And that is because of the failure of the bigger person, the grand actor, which is the state. And when we were covering the elections, my disappointment, anytime we have elections, Ghanaians are happy. We are happy about the music they play. You see politicians put DJ systems on the back of pickups and play loud music, make so much noise, even though we have EPA rules. Do you get it? And we get excited and we dance along and we say, my party is winning, blah, blah, blah. We need to wake up beyond what is your party and look at the Ghana agenda.
0539986996. I'm having breakfast with Penying and Kakra Forson.
A virtual breakfast. What is the breakfast?
The breakfast is on its way.
It's on the way.
Yeah,
we are waiting.
This is the Citi Breakfast Show. We're just pondering over a few issues here in studio. Your comments are welcome. 0539986996. Let me take this one that says, good morning, Sky and the crew. Happy New Year to all of you. Please, some of these motor riders are not Ghanaian, so please, who qualifies to own a license in Ghana? Well, that's the question you ask. Well, you can have an international license, even if you are not a Ghanaian. You can, under our laws, go through the test. Once you are properly resident here, you can do the necessary registration, and you have the necessary permission to use our roads in a truly responsible way. Another one that is here, Kakra, you want to take that one for me, please?
Yes, this person says, it's quite a long one. Modernization must not erase our motoring identity. DVLA's new system can work hand in hand with heritage protection. A practical solution is 1, register all vehicles digitally under the new zonal format. 2, allows certified, well-maintained classic vehicles to continue displaying their legacy alphabet plates like to bracket GR1234A. 3, maintain parallel digital records for consistency. Require periodic DVLA inspections to uphold standards. 4, creating a national historic vehicle registry, supporting the development of a national museum of transportation. 5, recognizing vehicles owned by culturally significant Ghanaians. 6, rejecting unsafe vehicles to encourage cleaner, safer maintenance culture. This one is like a thesis. Progress should not erase identity. Modernization should not wipe away history. Ghana's past is on the road. Let us protect it before it is gone. Those are some interesting ideas that are being shared.